excited about this today. Okay, I've got Alan Gregerman, the Alan Gregerman, on the show today. Let me mount the pressure on all of us. Actually, no, really. Alan Gregerman has worked with companies like Google, Marriott. He's worked with over 300 companies at least. I think I'm lowballing that by a huge amount. He's got a great book, The Wisdom of Ignorance, that's just come out. He understands how to help us unlock genius. And one of our core points today, we'll be talking about how smart leaders stop chasing ideas and what it is they do instead in order to drive growth and to drive great experiences for their companies. Alan, thanks so much for being here again on Vision Pros Live.
Oh, thanks. Delighted to be on. Delighted for the conversation. Thanks.
Absolutely. Alan, one of the things that draws my attention the most about you, I'm a big fan of education. I'm a huge fan of educating myself and others the right way and understanding how that works. And I've studied in religious institutions and universities, as well as throughout the hard knocks life process. And I have seen that, to me, the best educators are the one who include props, make it entertaining. They have a personality about them. You do all the things that I've seen my favorite teachers do. You've also got more years and wisdom of experience on me. Can you just talk to that point? Is this something that only you can do, or is this something that can be done more in companies? Let's start with that, because if I feel like if we can educate the world, we can change the world at the same time. So, Alan, what are your thoughts on that?
Fair. Yeah. So, of course, I think I maybe have a little bit of secret sauce as it relates to kind of teaching people, because I've been working and teaching people for more years than most of the people who are listening have been alive. But can companies and organizations kind of teach or inspire their people? I mean, think about what companies and organizations need to do. They need to get all of their employees to be excited about learning and figuring out the future. Okay. If you think about where any successful company is today, 5 years from now, they're going to have to be different. And so that means paying attention to the world around us and thinking in new ways about what's possible. Just there's so much change going on. You know, technology's changing, customers are changing, where people hang out and live and work is changing, kind of priorities people have, business models are changing. So the world is going to be really different, which means we all have to learn how to be awesome to get there. Okay. So yes. I spend a lot of time teaching companies how to energize people to create the future as a team, not just as a leader or a group of leaders who have a vision about what the future is going to be like. But I challenge lots of people to do it. And the simplest and best way is actually to ask people to get up from where they work and wander around and pay attention. Because outside most of our windows is a world that's changing really, really fast. And we rarely, other than to take a lunch break, go out and engage it. So I'd like people to do that. I also want people to understand that education and learning today, it's always been important, but I like to think of the idea of like just-in-time learning. Like, what do I need to know now to be awesome in the future? Because so much of the stuff I learned, other than how to learn, is relatively irrelevant tomorrow, right?
Yes.
I learned a lot of facts, and that's all really good. But the reality is I got to get out there, figure stuff out, find out the stuff I need to learn to be impactful and awesome, and then go and do that. And so that's, I guess, I mean, learning is a huge topic, but that's what I want people to think about is learning is vital. We all need to learn. We all need to learn fast. Leaders need to create a culture in which they say, it's cool for all of you to go out and get smarter and bring us these ideas to make us better.
Absolutely. I love what you just broke down there. You talked about in an office environment, getting up, wandering around and paying attention, but you're also speaking outside the office environment. You're talking about life in general. And today I have the opportunity to do this in such a fun way. And this is probably illegal in the United States. But I'm down here in Ecuador. Today is the second day of Carnival. And I'm going to be on the fourth story of this apartment complex. throwing water balloons at children. How awesome is that? What a great way to go out and experiment in the world and see. And of course, you're going to go downstairs and they're going to have these foam things as well that they spray all over. I mean, there's so much opportunity in the world to discover. And I'm kind of untying points on purpose. When you first spoke, I was thinking of how valuable it would be to go into another department, pay attention, wander and see. But I think it's so important too, as you talk about in your book, to just and in your speech, just go out and explore. Just let life itself inspire you to win. So, Alan, again, I'll give you back the mic for a little bit, and then we're going to cut for a little break. What do you got?
You know, so the world is changing fast, right? And it's
Yes.
not changing fast in our office, right? We show up at work at 8 o'clock or 9 o'clock or wherever we are. And the idea is we're going to get through our inbox and do more of the same. And that's just simply not going to cut it. What we need to do is more of something different. Now, I have faith in everyone listening only because I know that everyone listening at one point was a small child. And as a small child, I know they were innately creative and questioning and wondering and putting things together that didn't belong, and always wondering, what could I do that's even more remarkable? And then at some point, wherever you live, this came by the school bus, okay? And what is the school bus? The school bus came by and said, hop on, we'll take you to a place where you'll learn the stuff you need to learn. You'll learn language, you'll learn math, you'll learn science, but you'll learn stuff that has only one right answer, okay? And so the first thing they teach us is 1 + 1 = 2. That's our first math class. Now, that's a pretty pathetic thing to learn if we're being honest, okay? Because if I take one of me and I combine it with one of you and all I can get is a sum total of what we know, then that's not really brilliant, but that's what math tells me. Instead, if I put one person in an organization together with another person outside an organization, and I let some sparks fly, I get a lot more than they'd ever be capable of doing on their own. So we have to be cautious when we wave to our kids and parents are sad, you know, they're going off to school. They shouldn't be sad that they're going off to school. They should be sad that they're losing a lot of what they innately knew as kids. And part of my getting people out of the office is to get us to be like kids again, to get us to go, wow, that's pretty awesome out there. Or why are they using technology in this way? Or why do they have this business model? Or why is it easier or at times harder to get customer support? Why are these things happening? Or why are so many people using scooters today? How did that suddenly become a thing? You know, and then I go, oh, that gives me some clues about where the world is going. Now I need to redesign my business to make sure I get to where the world is going.
Huge. Absolutely. My friends, we're going to come back and we're going to talk about how smart leaders stop chasing ideas and what to do instead. We're going to add more impact on this. This is going to be about unconventional wisdom, thinking outside the box, looking at life from a completely different perspective. We're going to have a lot of fun while doing this. We'll see you guys all on the other side.
All right. Welcome in to Vision Pros Live with Jackson Callum. I'm your show host. We will be doing interviews for visionary entrepreneurs and guest leaders who are building fantastic visions out there.
Hey, what's up, everybody? Welcome into another episode of Vision Pros Live. I'm your show host, Jackson Callum, founder and CEO of First Class Business. And while most organizations believe innovation begins with ideas, the smartest leaders know that that's not where the real breakthroughs start. And we're going to be talking to Alan Gregerman about exactly that. Alan has decades of experience, and you may have just seen him showing a little bus here. And sometimes when I talk to people, I've had people say, Jackson, why do you talk to me like a child? And those are people who really don't relate to my style and who I am. And my thought process for those people these days is, no, I just have fun when I talk. It's not because you're a child. It's because it's fun to live. And so Alan's got this ability to teach us and to help us see things. And he's also got this playful spirit that allows us to contribute to that process as well. And that's exactly what we're going to be doing, is talking about how do we lead super well with the combined 1,000+ companies and brands that we've we've both worked with and on these exact processes. It's so important that we open our minds. I'm going to give a quick shout out to a TED Talk by Sir Richardson. I believe is his name. If you look that up, Ken. His name is Ken. Sir Ken Robertson. I don't care if you look it up wrong. Google will find this for you because it's one of the top TED Talks of all time. And it talks about how the education system has caused us to stop learning how to think for ourselves and to lose our innovation. Alan's bringing that back to us today. And again, we're going to unlock some things today. I'm going to make sure that both of us lean into things that we will not typically bring up in other environments that you probably haven't heard elsewhere. That way you guys get as much out of this as possible. Now, before I bring Alan back on, a couple of the sponsors up here for you. These are important because they don't pay for these, by the way. I put them here because I love these companies. Dr. Shannon and Dr. Justin Pierce. I've been friends with them for 8 years. If you've got a loved one who has a health issue and they don't know what to do, I highly recommend Dr. Shannon. I've sent her 3 different loved ones over the years, all 3 of which I followed up with after. These are people who had illnesses they didn't know what to do with. The doctors didn't know what to do. And every single one of them raved about what Shannon's capable of doing. And it's not magic. She just follows processes that allow her to see certain test results that others aren't paying attention to. That's as far as I can speak to this from an educated standpoint. This is not my craft, but I am so grateful that those loved ones got help and attention from somebody who actually knew how to provide something of value to their situation. So if you got something like that, definitely help them out. And let me know that it happened too. I would be grateful to know the impact that we're able to drive. Then there's Practice Makes Permanent with Jennifer Reed. Jennifer Reed has been working at none other than the IRS for the last 20 plus years. She's an emotional intelligence and spiritual intelligence professional who runs facilitation workshops now for corporations and for companies. And I don't think there's a harder training ground than the IRS person. I would just imagine, you think about the word bureaucracy and the stress and the pressures and the difficulties, or perhaps the lackadaisicalness, whatever you want to paint the picture of as that particular institute. It's just, I know it's not an institute that I would personally want to work in. She's been there for 20 plus years. But she also has a personal story, very driven around emotional intelligence. I highly recommend asking her about it, and any other cultural or leadership development executive that you're going to work with, ask them what their why is. Ask them why it matters, what it is they're up to. And I would keep that question very simple. This is kind of HR training, if you will. But if you can keep that simple, watch for how their eyes light up, or watch for the story they go into. In the case of Jennifer, bring a tissue box. You'll need it. It's very important to understand why she's committed to what she does, and you'll instantly understand how valuable she can be to your organization. And one of the greatest things that I've seen is when we improve the culture of an organization, that people improve how they serve. And if they improve how they serve, then naturally your revenues are going to go up too, because you're impacting those who you're serving in a way where they're going to want to belong and be part of what you do. So phenomenal team over at Practice Makes Permanent as well. Thank you, Marie Victoria, for showing what you're showing. And there's the Water Project. The Water Project is something that's near and dear to my heart these days, because I've never had to search for water in my life. I've always had access to it. And so when I came across this project, I was looking for a new cause to support on a bigger scale. And I couldn't relate to it at first because I've never been thirsty. But I realized there's millions of people who don't even have access to one of the most basic elements that our world has to offer. And these kids, I thought about what it would be like if my kids had to drink water out of some random place or rainfall. And what if they had to leave school? And what if I had to leave work to go get water? I saw that the Water Project was actually allowing you to pick the community that you want to support. And when you donate to it, they'll actually show you the project get finished. They send you photos of the proof of that project. And this next photo almost brings me to tears every time. It is children celebrating water like my kids celebrate Christmas Day. We have the ability to drive that type of impact. And so if you don't have the financial means to give back to the Water Project, my hope is that you will show this to somebody. Maybe you bring it up over dinner, over lunch with a friend. Maybe you decide to put it on your own podcast. I don't know what you can do with this, but I do know that you never know how far the ripple effect of good will go when you just open your mouth and talk about these types of opportunities. Somebody might even donate $100,000 for this today. And that's my big hope, is that we can get as much as possible to these individuals who need it most. We have the opportunity to bless generations. And so without further ado, we've got 8 billion people to help in this world. I hope you come and join me. I hope if you have a cause that you'd like to see us support, drop a link to that cause in the comments. I will personally take a look at it myself and see if there's something that we can do for it. Without further ado, we're going to go back to helping each one of you with your visions. So Alan Gregerman, it is my honor. Thank you so much for being here with me on Vision Pros Live again. I can't get enough of this.
Okay, great. No, I appreciate it. Yeah, so one of the things I think we were talking about a few moments ago that I'd love people to think about is that most people who are going to be listening and most of their organizations get innovation all wrong.
That's right.
Most of the time, what they do is they get a bunch of smart people, that assumes they're smarter people than others, into a room. They give them all a blank sheet of paper, and they say, we need to do something remarkable. And we can pick something remarkable. So they say, there's a lot of competition. We need to be faster than we've ever been before. Well, my view is the following, and it's based on research, and I've written about this in several of my books, and it's what I call the 99% rule. And that is 99% of all new ideas throughout the course of human history have been based on somebody else's thinking or something someone found in nature. So the reality is, rather than racking our brains and trying to find that corner of our brains that comes to work and doesn't have an original idea, why not head out in search of brilliant ideas? So let's say we wanted to be fast. If I wanted to be fast, and lots of our customers say, how do we do what we do faster? There are lots of places I can go in the world where people are fast, but one of the places I might go is actually to the savannas of Africa to study cheetahs, because cheetahs are actually the fastest land mammal. So we're land mammals. So cheetahs are like the fastest land mammals on Earth. So I would try to imagine, what do cheetahs know, or how are cheetahs designed to make them really fast? So they're designed in a few kind of interesting ways if we think about it. This is not an exact replica of a cheetah, but it's the best what I could find at the local store. So cheetahs have really long legs. And so those long legs give them the ability to make really long strides. It also gives them the ability to accelerate super fast. So a cheetah actually can get up to like 62 miles per hour, which is 100 kilometers an hour for those people who think metrically, which is probably more logical, in less than 3 seconds. That's kind of cool, okay? So now we have electric cars that can do that, but a cheetah could do that a long time ago. Cheetahs have, actually, this is not a replica, have relatively small heads. And the reason they do that is because it gives them less wind resistance, right? You don't want your head to slow you down. And then cheetahs have a really long tail. This tail should be longer. But cheetahs have a really long tail, so that allows them to change direction really quickly. So I've just mentioned 3 things I learned from cheetahs that would help organizations to be faster. The one is, what are the long legs of our organization? How can we design a process that allows us to accelerate? The second is, don't ever let your head slow you down. So what's all the wind resistance? What keeps us from being fast now? And how can I imagine designing my body? I mean, I'd like to have some pretty cool spots too, but how can I do that so that the wind goes right past whatever I design? And then the last is, how do I change direction really, really quickly? So the reality is, if I want to solve a problem, I'm way better off to already find somebody who's kind of solved it, whether it's an animal or a human, and use that as my starting point instead of just brainstorming to try and be brilliant. Okay. So I want people to think about 2 things. One is, just asking people to be brilliant isn't a winning formula. Even your most brilliant people, sending people out to find brilliance and then use that as the starting point for the best thinking of your organization is way better. And I spend a lot of my time actually taking teams of people, exploring cities, looking for ideas that we're going to use as the starting point. I never start in a meeting room. I never start, and I never have asked people to take out a blank sheet of paper and show me what they've got. I mean, that's like painful. Why would I do that? But if I say to them, let's go out and look for ideas, and then I say, show me what you've got, then suddenly everybody's come back with a bunch of ideas that have sparked their thinking because they saw things that are cool. Now, let's step back from that. We're all walking around all the time. So I'm sure all the people out there listening are wandering around, but they're not wandering purposefully, right? So they're wandering around on their cell phones. Just walk down a block of your street and look at how many people are on their cell phones, like they couldn't be bothered to pay attention to the world around them or to connect with people who are different than them. So the reality is, just get up, wander around, put your phone away, and just look and say to yourself, what are things I see that are new and remarkable? And those new and remarkable things give you a clue as to where the world is going and as to the target you need to hit to win.
I love that. And I love that you found a way to cater to a virtual audience by this idea of bringing the cheetah involved. And it reminds me too of the book, A Man's Search for Meaning, because he was stuck in that prison, right? Victor was stuck in the prison and he was playing golf in his head. He did not have the ability to leave his cubicle. I mean, his prison, right? And so sometimes we do have limitations in life where we can't physically go. And there are lots of people that I think that listen to this type of show that are in third world environments or that are in a corporate cubicle or something, they might not be able to get up, but you have the power within yourself to be able to do this and to really double down Alan's point. But if you can get up and you can get out, why not? Don't make the excuse that you have to stay. Go and do something creative as part of this process. So Alan, let's dive into another point on this. We were talking about the real breakthroughs, and I was looking at the idea of challenging innovation, leadership, and growth. So there are the conventional ways of looking at innovation, leadership, and growth. I want us both to just think about what's one out-of-the-box reality regarding innovation that could change the perception of a leader today. Same thing for leadership itself, same thing for growth. You want to start with innovation, leadership, or growth? Let's play.
I'll start with all of them together because,
Okay,
my
cool.
field is innovation, and so if I think about it, I believe we only should be innovating if we're going to grow as people and organizations. So just coming up with a new idea because it's a cool idea that doesn't get us to be more valuable to the people in our organization or the broader world, to my mind, isn't particularly valuable. So I always think about innovation being purposeful. And I always think about leaders as the fundamental gatekeepers. They set the landscape for whether we're able to be innovative or not. So having said that, I guess I'll start with leaders and I'll mention the following thing. And that is the smartest thing that any leader can do. And remember, I worked hard in an organization to rise to become a leader. I got to look like I have my whatever together, okay? And I won't use that word, but I've thought of that, okay? So I got to make it look like I'm smarter than the rest of the people. Or do I? I actually got to make it look like I'm smarter than the rest of the people because my smarts is actually not knowing stuff. How many leaders listening today absolutely can tell me 5 years from now where the world is going to be? And so they can't. And so here's the thing that I would advise leaders to do that makes innovation and growth flourish. And that is to get in front of all your folks and say, I don't know the answer to where we need to be, but I believe together we can figure it out. That single statement would change the way that organizations engage with the world and innovate. But because we're trying to impress our leaders, because they have an idea, because they've given us directives on what to do, we tend to follow them as opposed to collaborating with them and helping them to be better. So a smart leader says, we need to be innovative. We don't know what we need to do, but I believe that we're smart enough if we get out there in the world to see where the world's going, see what value we add in the world, and bring those two together. So that's the fundamental thing.
Yes.
Then the innovation thing is, I believe, quite honestly, that anything is possible, but I got to figure out what the anything is. I think what happens is in most organizations, they believe that they have a bunch of stuff they've already developed. And whether those are tools or software or pharmaceuticals or a healthcare experience or an automobile or whatever, they've kind of developed that. That's their knowledge base, their thought leadership, and that's the basis for creating the future. I'm not sure that's the case. I believe the basis for creating the future is trying to figure out something that would matter in the future and then conceiving of the details of how to make it happen. So that requires that humility. I don't know exactly if what we're doing is going to be relevant in the future. It might be, but what's more important is, what do people need in the future? What do companies need in the future? And then suddenly all kinds of models kind of appear. So imagine this, and I don't know what the world is like in Ecuador, but I do know that as an American, we pay more for healthcare than any place else in the world. Okay. I just was given a prescription for a new medicine that I was supposed to take, I'm taking. And it's $2,200 a month to get this medicine in the US. It's $138 a month in Canada. And I don't know in other places what it costs. But so think about this. Healthcare companies think about the world in terms of providing healthcare. They have a really funny incentive, and that is the more you get sick, the more money they make. Customers don't need healthcare. What they need is health. Health's the primary thing we need, and then healthcare would be good to have if for some reason I get sick. So now imagine this. My wife's from Sweden, and in Sweden in the summer, the Swedish government, which controls the healthcare system and is totally focused on reducing costs by keeping people healthy, subsidizes aerobics instructors to go to every community in Sweden and lead aerobics classes. Like an insane way to spend your healthcare dollars? Actually not, because that's going to create a culture of go to class, stay healthier, and the healthier I am, the less healthcare I need. But I need to get out there to see that there's a different model of doing that. It's well said. That I have as my primary care physician in the US, someone who's called a lifestyle physician. He's an expert in kind of helping me to figure out how I use my lifestyle to stay healthy. Shouldn't like all physicians do that? Shouldn't physicians be about keeping me healthy as opposed to treating me when I'm sick? So I think we have we define things the wrong way. We have a skewed idea about it. So in innovation, let's begin with what's the big issue that really matters to people that we can try to address. And then I think we address that. And then growth, I think, happens if we do something that matters to a growing number of people. We grow as an organization.
So, absolutely. Yeah. Huge. And so with that, what would matter? That is such a great question to be considering. It unlocks the genius of thinking through what's going to be purposeful. And those of you who are listening right now, I'm going to plant a seed for you while we watch some of the things that can help each of you. We're going to watch the sizzle reel that Alan Gregerman has about how he helps companies and the types of companies that are there. Visionaries, you need sizzle reels. We need to be able to drive clarity for what it is that we provide to people. People need to be able to see it. They need to be able to hear it. They need to be able to feel it. He's got a great example of what that looks like. And he talks about towards the end of it, the fact that all of us need to be a bit paranoid. And I thought that was a very interesting point. So we'll get to see that. We'll come back. Before I move into that, though, this what would matter, my seed that I'm going to plant. You can also use AI to help develop those types of thoughts. I'm not saying replace your brain with AI. Some people are doing that right now. But I'm talking about actually leaning into it and say, you know what, after I've done my walk around the world and taking a look at things and taking things in, if I want to continue to expand the process, it's not a bad idea to ask it for insights into, well, what would matter? And my thoughts go to what would matter in 2027, 2028 for the podcasting world. and like, what is it going to need at this time? And it's amazing what happens when you collaborate with human beings, with AI, etc. We'll see you guys on the other side of the scissor reel. Enjoy this and think through, how can I apply this scissor reel to my own life and to my own vision? Even if I don't have decades of experience like Alan, what can I showcase to bring the world value and help the world see the value that I provide?
Innovation is the lifeblood of our companies and organizations. Innovation is the way that we will take AI and use it for our advantage. Innovation is the way we imagine and then deliver remarkable customer experiences to leverage what's remarkable about being human. Most adults and most organizations get innovation all wrong. They rely on things they already know. It turns out that's not the way innovation actually happens. Not knowing stuff, what I call the wisdom of ignorance, is the real key to innovation and creating breakthroughs in an uncertain world. I believe that not knowing is really our superpower.
Alan Gregerman, innovation expert and author. His mission? To unlock the genius in people and organizations, helping them solve problems and seize new opportunities.
It's a proven, fearless method for achieving remarkable results in a world-changing, super fast.
On the evening of March 16th, 2021, I had a really rare stroke and I lost the ability to see and speak. But what I learned more importantly in having this stroke was that the world is an uncertain place. It's a place that's filled with change that challenges all of us to think in new and powerful ways. But the challenges and opportunities waiting to be solved are going to be solved by people who engage the world head on, people who are willing to try to do something different. What I'd like you to think about are two big ideas that I've spent a lot of time working on, ideas that I've worked on with over 300 companies around the world. The first is what I call enlightened ignorance, the kind of ignorance that has guided entrepreneurs, innovators, and scientists throughout the course of human history. They enable you to think fearlessly. Good thing is we were all born with the skills we need. And they make up what I think of as the 6 fundamental skills we all need to stay competitive and relevant in a world changing super fast. The first is we need to have a compelling sense of purpose. In the absence of a clear purpose, none of us are going to do anything remarkable. The second is curiosity. You want to solve a problem, get out from the place where you normally are. The third thing I want you to think about is the idea of humility. We haven't solved this problem. I don't have a lot of expertise, but I'm willing to go and find that expertise. I'm willing to figure out how to solve the problem. The fourth thing I want you to think about is ideas can come from everywhere, and we ought to respect every single person we meet. Any human I have the privilege to meet, I can learn something from. The fifth thing I want you to think about is we all need to be what I call future focused. And that is, even though we live in the present, we need to be paying attention to what's going on in the future. The last thing I want you to think about is I want all of you to be paranoid. And the reason I want you to be paranoid is because there is always someone following you. But the people following you are the people who are going to make you less relevant unless you stay relevant. These are the 6 skills, the heart of what I call enlightened ignorance, that will define who succeeds and who doesn't. And the second thing I want you to think about is what I call the 99% rule. It's basically the notion that 99% of all ideas throughout human history are based on someone else's thinking or something found in nature. These two look remarkably the same because the folks who invented the helicopter thought about how dragonflies fly. Instead of having people meet in a conference room, I'd take not just our smartest people, but our most open-minded people, and I'd send them out in search of ideas. Innovation is all about the ability to not know, but the ability to be inspired to know in new and better ways. The future is going to be way different than it is today. You don't have to come up with a totally original idea to be innovative, but you have to put your whole heart into whatever you decide to do. All of you and all of your companies and organizations are the change makers we need in an uncertain world. I believe in you because I believe in the power of humans to make a difference. Now I simply want you to go out and make it happen.
That is such an awesome awesome scissor reel. I've watched it 3 times, 4 times actually. I shared it with my team once as well, and it's chock full of so much value, Alan. And so with your book, Wisdom, the Wisdom of Ignorance, and your vision, where are you going with it? What are you doing on the horizon?
Well, right now I'm trying to get the word out as much as I can. I'm traveling around the world talking with groups and companies and organizations about the power they have that they don't realize to do remarkable things. So how they can unlock the genius in all of their people. So that's kind of my mission over the next kind of couple of years. What I really want to do is kind of create just a different understanding. I think what's happened a lot of the time is that people say I'm not particularly innovative, or organizations tend to rely on the usual suspects, the people who run R&D, the people who are product developers, and they believe that's the sum total of the places they can go to get brilliant ideas. And I guess I want everybody to realize they have the potential to be brilliant, and that organizations need the brilliance of everyone. So that's what I'm trying to do. I also want to open people's eyes up to the possibility that their next great breakthrough not only doesn't come from their organization, but comes from outside their organization and maybe even outside the world they're familiar with today. So it can come from some other part of the world, some other industry, some other walk of life, some other culture. So I really want people to be open to the possibility that they can learn, find ideas, capture ideas, innovate, and that we all have the power to do that. So that's what I'm determined to kind of do. And I figure I'll at least spend the next couple of years doing it. And of course, I'd love to travel around. So if anybody's listening and they'd like to bring me someplace where I can also learn some stuff, I'm open to that. But I really am trying to get this book out. I just believe so strongly in the ideas in this book, and that this book would be particularly kind of energizing and liberating to people. That's kind of
absolutely. I can tell it's a game changer. And again, the sizzle reel really helps plant the seeds for that. Mel Robbins is endorsing it too. She's also has one of the greatest TED Talks of all time. For those of you who are listening and may not know.
And I do like puppies there. If you're scrolling there, we only have 3 dogs, but I do like puppies.
That's awesome. And the, this process of innovation, and you talked about earlier how companies tend to strangle it. They tend to limit it. And, I love what you said about leaders. You said a leader sets the landscape for innovation or not. And I know that as you said that, I was thinking about how my evolution as a leader. Oh yeah, no, I've definitely stamped out and accidentally cut off innovation and people from thinking outside the box about things. It's not always something we do with intent, and it doesn't come from just being a bad leader. You can be a great leader and still stifle innovation if you're not well trained on how to open the framework. So I'd like to go back into that a little bit. How do we help leaders, move towards thinking about what would matter, while also not losing sight of what's important in the here and now? Is there a harmonious path for those to live together?
Well, I think there's a hugely harmonious path, but I think it all begins with leaders coming clean. Okay. And so I talk about that a lot. I talk about the idea that leaders have to take us all on a journey to being more remarkable than what we are today, and more valuable to the people we serve. So what would that journey look like? That journey would look like saying, we know a lot, but what we know isn't sufficient to get to where we need to go, and that's okay. I believe we can figure it out together. Now, how are we going to do that? We're going to do 2 things. We're going to talk with our customers in more depth and kind of in better questioning than we ever have before. We're going to not only find out what matters to them now, but kind of help them to begin to think about where they'd like to get to with us as a partner. So that helps me to start to have a target. Now I open up the world to my people and I say, let's go out and get some ideas that will spark our best thinking about how to get to this target. So, we talk about strategy and purpose, Purpose is vital. And strategy really is different today. Strategy isn't you hire a consultant, they help you develop a strategy. It tells you where you're going to be 5 years from now. Strategy is a living thing. This is where our customers need to go, and we're determined to help them get there. So I really believe that that's what leaders need to do is they need to energize people. Now, what else do leaders need to do? They need to pay attention to the world of ideas. They need to be open to ideas. They need to not be kind of rigidly dogmatic about what they know, as though what they know is the vital thing to know. So
we're going to dive in pragmatically on that right now, because visionaries struggle with one major aspect of this, Alan. And I love that you talk about thinking fearlessly. Most leaders box themselves in based on finances. Most visionaries tell themselves, I don't have the budget. I won't have it for a year. I don't know how to get it. That's fearful thinking. That is not fearless leadership. That's not thinking. That's not being open to, well, wait a second. How would I go about getting a budget? How can I go about, in your case, distributing your book to the world? Right? Are there ways that can be amplified? And so the audience of visionaries that often come into this, their immediate thought process is, I don't have the money to pull my vision together. I don't have the means. I can't get a team. I can't afford a team. There's so much mental blockage around that process that I'd love to use it as a pragmatic example. How do we help, Alan, leaders realize that, one, we're not encouraging them to go jump off of a cliff, right? We're not saying, hey, go spend everything, go get a credit card, but how do we explore that in a way that empowers visionaries and leaders to realize that, okay, they do have more access to that vehicle that can take them further, faster, better, safer, stronger. If their mind's blocking it, how do we help them open up?
Okay, good. Well, it doesn't cost anything to think, okay? And it doesn't cost anything unless you buy a sandwich to leave the office, okay? And so what I want people to do is say, let's go out there and engage the world and see if we can come up with some ideas for how we can be more valuable, how we can innovate and grow in the future. Then we come up with a set of ideas, and then we test those ideas. And again, we can test most ideas without spending a lot of money on them. I think what happens is an awful lot of leaders and organizations think about, I have to create the perfect product or the perfect service before I can launch it. I need a budget to do that. You actually don't. I think we mentioned a little while ago, or maybe I mentioned it in the video. I mentioned this idea of paranoia. Okay, so here's the reality is, just because you're awesome at what you do doesn't mean there isn't somebody better following you, and they're following you faster. And the people who are following you are 3 friends in an apartment eating pizza, drinking the cheapest beer they can find, and planning to overthrow your world. Now, how are they going to do that? They understand something about technology. They have a different idea about the customers. They've created a business model that maybe is tied to an app. They've thought of all kinds of things, okay? Have they spent a fortune? Absolutely not. Do they have a fortune? Absolutely not yet. They'll get a fortune if they have a good idea. They'll go to a venture capitalist and say, here, this is a brilliant idea. Can I have several $1 million? So I just want people inside corporations to think the same way. We're going to spend a weekend.
I want to expand that a little bit further, because that's thinking only inside the box of those who are qualified. Rather than realizing that venture capitalists, they're great, they're important, they have their angle, but my friends, visionaries, if you go straight to a venture capitalist, there's a reason they're called Shark Tanks. You're going to get eaten alive in the process. And so preparing yourself for that, and also talking to other innovators, whether it's at the Geekdom in San Antonio or the, the Capital Factory in Austin, Texas. There are places like that that can open your minds up even further. And so tying the 2 points together, yes, definitely consider the value of the venture capitalist, but also consider, what can ChatGPT or AI also teach you about what's available in terms of finances? What if you learn from somebody who knows about promissory notes? and you looked up promissory notes, you could end up with the capital that you need right there too, without having to give your entire brand away. There's so many opportunities that exist around this. To Alan's point, it begins with being able to think fearlessly, realizing that there's no price of thinking, but I do think there's a hard cost of a closed mind. And when we say things like, I can't afford it, I don't have the money, I'm not able to do it at this time, that's all closed-minded thinking. That ends up trapping you in a position where you can't move your vision forward. Alan, continue.
Well, no. So when a leader says that, to me, it means, we're going to ride what we do as long as we can. We don't care if the world is changing or whether we become irrelevant. And so what does a real leader do? A real leader looks out in the world and says it is changing, and we have to figure out how to be different in the future. So I want people to think about that. And then I want people to realize most of the breakthroughs which we assume are part of our life today have absolutely nothing to do with people knowing a lot or having a budget, okay? In fact, some breakthroughs happen because people couldn't even pay their rent. So think about Airbnb. Lots of people listening have used Airbnb. Was that started by two people in the hospitality industry? No, it was started by a couple of design students in San Francisco who couldn't afford to pay their rent and thought maybe when conferences came to town, we could rent out our couch for $40, cheaper than a hotel, to people who would couch surf. And that's now the largest, and by some measures, hospitality company in the world.
I love that example. I love that you mention it too, because Chip Conley of Joie de Voir, he wrote a great book called Peak: How to Get Your Mojo from Maslow and Build Great Cultures. And then Chip went on to become one of the board of directors of Airbnb. So they did what Alan's talking about. They worked with they worked with this concept of what would matter and how could this help people. And they worked in general, if you will. They appreciate innovation and creativity. Then they also position themselves to be able to attract some of the best icons in the industry to pull more perspective into how do we scale and grow this thing. So it's a phenomenal example. Alan, continue.
Yeah, no. So, I mean, the world is filled with those. So everybody listening has probably taken an Uber now. It's a way to get around town. It's a way to get around a lot of places in the world. Uber wasn't started by people who were in the taxi cab business and said there's a better way. Uber was started by two friends who were in Paris in the winter and couldn't find a taxi. And they said to themselves, gee, I bet we're not the only people who have this problem. Isn't there a technology, GPS technology, that could bring people who have a car together with people who need a ride? And suddenly we've solved that much better than standing on a corner and hoping it's the right corner to catch a cab. So the reality is, get out there, see a challenge you have. If you ever face a challenge and you go the world isn't organized to help me solve this challenge, then say to yourself, maybe a lot of people have this challenge. Maybe I should think a little bit differently. But the reality is that we got to get out there. Some of it could be serendipity. Some of it could be deliberate. I curate explorations in which I expose people wandering through cities to lots of ideas, because I know some of those ideas are going to spark their best thinking, but sometimes it's just plain serendipity. I like to say each day I walk by 100 people who could change my life, but I never take the time to connect with them. And so I want people to get out, connect with people, ask questions, wonder about things, and then imagine how those ideas could be used to transform your world. I think it's pretty simple. Want to serve young people? I've helped healthcare companies sell healthcare policies, insurance policies, and health to young people. How did I do that? I took them to nightclubs where young people hung out. I got them to see the environments in which young people were happy, and then I got them to actually talk to young people and say, we sell healthcare. Tell me what you think about healthcare. We're in an environment where you like to be. Tell me about it. And that's where we got the idea that maybe healthcare was important, but having a portal that showed me how I could live a healthy life in the community I'm in was more important to young people. So part of it is just get out there, engage with people, think about stuff, see how the world is changing. I mean, In my mind, maybe because I do this every day, it's kind of simple, but I believe anyone listening can get out there and start to build their muscle memory um, about what it's like to be curious again, and that some of that curiosity will lead to something. And if they'd like ideas, connect with me. I'm not hard to find. Yeah.
Absolutely. Well, and that really, it to me, it reminds me of the law of the harvest. And I'm really big on principles that stand the test of time. You talked about there's 100 people that we pass on a daily basis. And with the internet, it tends to be even more than that. But I think sometimes we forget the opportunity to, like you said, pay attention, to what people are up to and what's going on, take interest in where they're at. But if I have 100 people per day that I can connect with, then I also have the opportunity to think, just like if I'm in an orchard, law of the harvest style, with a bunch of apples hanging from trees, I don't have to desperately pull every apple off the tree. And I don't have to walk past and forget that and be hungry. I can realize that, wait a second, I can slow down, appreciate the world that I'm in, pick and choose which apple makes the most sense, for me in my circumstance, and then move forward freely and enjoy this journey. And the same is true with 100 people that you talk about. Our lives can be blessed so much. We can unlock such a rich level of success by leaning into the people who are around us. And I'm going to end on Theodore Roosevelt's quote: "People don't care how much we know until they know how much we care." And so if we take interest in others and we care about them in that process, it is amazing how fast our visions can come to life and how we can find people who also want to contribute to building our vision. So Alan, I'll give you the final word. If this was your last chance to talk about vision to visionaries out there, what would your final wisdom and thoughts be for them?
Oh, yeah, no, I'm actually keen on people, so I appreciate, and I use AI, but I believe that positive things are going to happen when people decide to ask questions and make a difference. People can use AI, and now everybody talks about AI to help them be smarter, but ultimately people have to see kind of real challenges out there in which they can make a difference, either as a business or a nonprofit or whatever the case is, and they need to seize us. And the way they're going to do it is to bring together other people with other ideas who are open to thinking in new ways. I think the other thing I want people to think about is just we need to reset. And I posted on LinkedIn a few days ago about the powerful idea, and that is periodically in a world changing fast, we always need a reset. We need to say to ourselves, the things I think about the world and the way I look at the world, absolutely right for now. And I would guess with most companies, they're not. And so, or they're not as good as they could be. And so I want everybody to say, 5 years from now, we need to be different. Let's figure out how to make it happen now.
That's awesome. My friends, I hope you lean into the people that are around you. Of course, you can lean into Alan Gregerman. You can go to alangregerman.com. You can also connect with him on social media. We're connected on LinkedIn, I believe. And if you want to be a visionary on the show, you don't have to have worked with 300 plus businesses. You don't have to have several books published. You don't have to have worked with companies like Google and Marriott and got endorsements from Mel Robbins. We're looking for visionaries who are also just getting started. In the top right corner, you'll see a button. It says Be Our Guest of visionproslive.com. Go there, click the button, book your appointment. Come on in. Let's talk about the vision. Let's talk about how you're going out there and helping the world. Let's make this world a better place. Alan, thank you so much for being here today. This has been absolutely my pleasure. And I wish you the best as you continue to change the world with us.
Well, thanks for having me on. I've loved the conversation. Thanks.
Absolutely. Vision Pros. We'll see you guys in the next episode. Take care, everybody.
Thank you for being here today. I'm really happy that you tuned in to Vision Pros Live. I'm looking forward to seeing your reactions as these episodes continue to move forward. This is going to get more and more fun. We'll have more and more engagement as well. We'll invite people to participate in the show. And thank you for giving us your time and attention. Have an excellent time building out your vision and becoming a Vision Pro yourself.